Joining us now to remind all of us what happened on that fateful day, because he was there. Retired Air Force combat vet, host of the Rob Maness Show, Colonel Rob Maness, back on Real America. Colonel, nice to see you. I hate that it's on this day, but it's a very important day. A day that I feel like, and I'm just going to say it, and I don't really care if I take heat for it because it's the truth. A day that I feel like 24 years later, not a majority, but a big portion of this nation has forgotten what happened to us, who hit us, and how we all came together. What do you think? Am I wrong?
Oh, you're absolutely right, Dan. Thank you so much for that great introduction, because the point is that Islamism combined with Marxism has a foothold inside this country today.
It does.
And I will never forget, as that video so aptly stated, my family will never forget. My wife, Candy, was graced us with her presence in that video and agreed to do it, even though she doesn't like doing that, but she knows it's important that we leave a record. We have to leave this record because everything changed for you, for me, for all of America on that day because of this virus, this virulent, tyrannical ideology called Islamism.
Yeah, it's evil. It's evil,
want
Rob.
you dead. And
Can we just call it like it is? And again, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
I get tired of people labeling folks like you and me that are calling out the factual information about what Islam is. And again, I'm not throwing every Muslim on this planet under the bus. I know there are millions of peace-loving ones. But this radical Islam, and I had Laura Logan on the show the other day, Rob, and she was saying, stop calling it a religion. This is a civilization based on radical ideology. That's why they want caliphates across the globe, and you either convert or you're dead. And so I will, till my dying day, call out radical Islam. It doesn't make me xenophobic, Islamophobic, racist. No, it makes me an American. Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And we have a lot of work to do. Charlie Kirk tweeted out not long ago that Islam was the sword that would slice America's neck at the throat, to paraphrase him. He was leading with his Christian faith and was martyred. I will call it what it is. Jack Posobiec called it that. He was martyred as a Christian. That, number one. Number two, as an American, he was martyred because these people want to take over America. The mayor nominee for the Democrat Party of New York City is a red-green axis Marxist Islamist.
Thank you.
That's his background. That's where he's coming from. Texas has Sharia courts. Texas has a village being constructed for Islamites only.
Right.
That is wrong. This is not about religion or every Muslim or anything. Look, on the day at the Pentagon, one of the people I was talking about in that video when I saw how people reacted was a Muslim immigrant that stopped his taxi on the highway and ran towards us as we were taking care of the wounded coming out of that building and helped. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this governance, this ideology, this tyrannical, oppressive system that these people that follow it, and it's many of them, they're here. They give us that example every single day. They did it all throughout the Middle East. They're doing it in Europe. Look at the United Kingdom now. We have to stand up and stop it. The reason they killed Charlie Kirk is because they knew that he could mobilize the youth of America over across generations. I've talked to my grandson, my 20-year-old son, and my 30-year-old son multiple times the last 24 hours because they're all followers of Charlie Kirk who believe in the Americanism that he taught and the way he taught it, which was go talk to people that have opposing views and give them a voice.
He did it with civility.
And then persuade them.
He did it with civility. And I'll tell you what.
He did.
Everybody, I'm going to keep this message throughout the show. Everybody keeps talking about Charlie getting the younger generation on board with America first, patriotism, God, family first. That's great, but guess what? I don't think he just swayed a bunch of young folks. I'm 51 in a few weeks, Colonel, and guess what? He was an inspiration to this old guy too. And I met him 5 years ago, 6 years ago when he was 25. And I was like, man, is this kid sharp? He's got it all. And over the years, getting to know him and watching him progress and grow TPUSA, and I know we're getting off subject here with 9/11, but man, this kid had it all, and he is going to, and has, I hope, now not I hope, I know, he has awoken the giant. And as I mean the giant, I mean many of us, not just kids. But back to 9/11, Colonel, if you would. Talk to my viewers about where you were that day and just, describe it for us. Try to bring it back for people who are too young to remember it or not even know about it.
The thing that strikes me about the weather, and my wife hates when I say this part of the story, is that it's usually hot and muggy in early September in the D.C. swamp area there where the Pentagon's located. But this was a clear day. It was crisp, cool. I had to wear a jacket. There was no humidity, and the sky was blue. The only thing in the sky were contrails, so no clouds. It was a perfect day to fly airplanes if you weren't that experienced at flying airplanes, Dan. And I worked in the National Military Command Center in the C Ring on the 3rd floor. In between corridors 9 and 11. There's 5 rings to the Pentagon, A on the inside, E on the outside. So we were about halfway there. And we're on the same side of the building as the Secretary of Defense's office. As a matter of fact, the hallway leading to the guarded control point, the only one that existed at the time to get into the National Military Command Center where I worked, led from the Secretary of Defense's office so that we could get him in there rapidly if a crisis occurred and he needed to make
So if
some
I'm looking at the Pentagon in its shape with the flat bottom, the 2 sides, and then the 2 that come at the point, and we know that where the plane struck, what side were you on in relationship to where the plane hit?
I was northeast on the spoke to the northeast of that of the impact. There's in between corridors 4 and 5 is where the aircraft hit. Kind of headed in a northeasterly direction from the southwest, and if I remember correctly, and the nose of the airplane broke through the wall of the C ring into the alleyway and spilled the cockpit contents out into the alleyway in between, I believe, the B and C ring, if I remember correctly. We did an evacuation of the building. That were all the non-essential personnel evacuated in a peacetime fire drill, basically, and put 5,000 people out on each corner of the building, just a few yards from the building itself, out in the open, by the way. I was one of the last to leave the building and leave just the operations team and the senior leadership in the command center because I worked in nuclear operations, and our global nuclear command and control and communications exercise was kicking off as the aircraft hit the Pentagon. So the office I worked in, almost all of the leadership was out on airplanes. One of my bosses was on the Doomsday aircraft.
So lives were saved because they were out working. There was less people in the building.
Yeah, they were actually taking off out of Andrews Air Force Base at the moment the 757 hit the Pentagon in the Doomsday aircraft, the National Airborne Operations Center, which is the blue and white 747 that gets mistaken for Air Force One all the time.
Colonel,
so a lot of decisions had to be made. And as a major, I just helped pull the senior leaders together and help them get into position and get information to make decisions to do things like land all the airliners, figure out where the president's going to go. And my immediate boss, was part of that decision to get him to Louisiana, to Barksdale Air Force Base, and then ultimately to Offutt, and then eventually he came home. Our team was all part of that. But then when I left, I went outside, Dan, and I met a friend of mine up on the hill on the north side of the building. Casualties were streaming out, and I just got in and started helping people bring casualties down on the gurney and getting them down to this triage area the medics had set up because their clinic was right there on that side of the building. But ultimately, when all those folks were taken care of and transported in one way or another, some even in civilian cars because we couldn't get fire trucks in very rapidly, a couple hundred of us volunteered to go back in the building and fight the fire and look for more casualties from inside. And I ended up right there where that cockpit burst through the C-ring wall into the alleyway there, working there all day with a team of people led by a Marine Corps lieutenant colonel whose desk just happened to be not far from where the aircraft flew through, and he was still alive, and he took command immediately. And I worked with generals from every service, privates, corporals, airmen, sergeants.
A lot of Colonel, I hate to wrap you up,
amazing
but I've got other interviews I got to get to. Obviously, with Charlie's assassination, it's been a wild, crazy news 48 hours. But I want to thank you for your service overall, but also your service that day. Because while many rushed out in all of these horrific acts committed by monsters, many, many rushed in, and you were one of them. So in my book, sir, you're a hero. God bless you. Retired Colonel, Air Force, like myself, an old Zoomie, Rob Maness. Check his show out, The Rob Maness Show. Appreciate you, Colonel. Take care.
Thanks, Dan. God bless.
Yep, God bless you.